It's always so hilarious to me when I have to read an article from TheGamer or Kotaku or Polygon because they are so out of touch with gamers. It is insane. You'd think that they would understand what it is their audience wants from video games, but they just don't. And now TheGamer has put up an article titled, "Why Isn't Monster Hunter Wilds Flopping Like Dragon Age the Veilguard?" And really, it's very simple. It's because Monster Hunter Wilds is a game and Dragon Age was a lecture. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, we have seen so much coping from journos over the past couple of years because they've realized that they have become irrelevant content creators like myself, for example, are providing gamers with all different types of experiences and opinions and, well, I play video games all the time and I prove it, unlike people at TheGamer who are pointed and laughed at because they praise games like Veilguards and give them 9s and 10s out of 10s when really they're 2 or 3s, and Monster Hunter Wilds has been doing fantastic. Everybody's playing it, everybody's talking about it, and I am really happy that Monster Hunter fans are getting such good content. I mean, I've played a lot of Wilds already and it's really good, but TheGamer can't seem to understand why Monster Hunter Wilds isn't flopping but Dragon Age the Veilguard did. It says Monster Hunter Wilds is the latest entry in a long-running RPG series. It's the most approachable entry in the franchise yet. It may have lost some of its identity in the process of sanding down some of its more unique features, but the developers made that sacrifice in hopes of reaching a bigger audience. Where have I heard this one before? Oh, right. Dragon Age the Veilguard is the latest entry in a long-running RPG series. It's the most approachable entry in the franchise yet. Just because it's the most approachable does not mean it is the best. Now, when it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds, it does a lot that is really amazing. It is a fully fledged story. It doesn't push identity politics in your face. It's really fun. It's got a wide variety of creatures or monsters, and overall, it is a really awesome experience. But with Dragon Age the Veilguard, they took the franchise in a direction that was not recognizable. I think that's the best way to say it because Dragon Age the Veilguard was definitely like a modern audience Dragon Age game, and that's just not what people want. But with Wilds, it still feels like Monster Hunter. That's why it's successful. It may have lost some of its identity in the process of sanding down some of its more unique features, but the developers that made sacrifice in hopes of reaching a bigger audience, and yet the Veilguard and Wilds have experienced vastly different fortunes because one is a game and one is a lecture. With Dragon Age the Veilguard, they're constantly beating you over the head with some kind of narrative, right? You constantly have to address your characters' sexualities and their identities, and you have to respect them. You can't really be evil anymore, but that's just not what Monster Hunter is about. You are the best at your job, you're going out, you're killing monsters, you're crafting gear, and you're playing a video game. They're just different. Approachability for me, but not for the, I mean, this is total and complete delusion at its finest. Monster Hunter Wilds has been a huge hit, shifting 8 million copies in the first 3 days, making it the fastest selling game in Capcom history, beating the previous 3-day record set by Monster Hunter World's 5 million copy start. As I write this, Wilds is still the #1 seller on Steam and will likely be sticking around the top 10 for quite a while. Though we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, it's safe to say the gambit worked. Capcom went after the audience that had been scared off by previous games' unfriendly reputation and reeled them in hook, line, and sinker with a streamlined on-ramp, easier fights and a greater emphasis on story and characters. This does provide a great experience for a lot of different types of people. It's not like you have to have, knowledge of 8 other games to follow a story. The main kind of storyline, or the tutorial, I like to call it, is just very easy, at least in my opinion. And then later on in the game, when you're actually doing high rank battles, yes, it does become much more difficult, and you can do things in order to make the experience more difficult if you wear weaker armor, or you can make it easier for you by wearing stronger armor and using all these different abilities, and certain weapons are just kind of like press 1 or 2 buttons and you just kind of win. So it just depends on how you play, and that's what makes Wilds really good for a lot of different types of people. But with Veilguard, it was a total and complete failure, right? They only shifted 1.5 million units in its first quarter. That low number was surprising given that Veilguard enjoyed EA's best single-player Steam release ever with a 70,000 launch day concurrent players. Yeah, look at the numbers compared to Wilds versus something like Veilguard. We're talking about all-time peaks of in the millions versus not even 100,000. It says, though, it seems like that strong debut was largely caused by Dragon Age faithfuls showing up in huge numbers on the strength of love for the series and strong reviews. Yeah, because people were really hoping this was going to be another great Dragon Age experience, and instead it was just Identity Politics, the simulator. And because TheGamer has put out this just completely out of touch and delusional take, gamers are wrecking them. Over on X, they really don't have a lot of interaction here, but they're still technically getting negatively ratioed, which is just so funny to me, right? Because it's not like TheGamer's account is small. They've got 93,000 followers over on X, and they've managed 2 likes, right? That is abysmal. I mean, my account has right under 40,000 and I get 70, 181, and these are just for resharing my content. Never mind if I actually make a post where I'm giving commentary that's 400 to, 1,000 likes and then hundreds of comments. It's just mind-boggling to see how far these journo outlets have fallen, but really that's why they're putting out hit pieces after hit piece after hit pieces on games like Monster Hunter Wilds, and why they're praising things like Veilguard because they are just so out of touch, but they realize that sometimes you can get hate clicks, and they see hate clicks as the only way to stay afloat. John Douglas had said, yeah, it's a real fucking mystery, Scooby. Coffee and Chocolate Game said, impossible to figure out even for a computer. This right here is a perfect example of why games journalism is irrelevant, and I say this all the time. Everybody can have their own opinion, and sometimes I'm going to have takes you're not going to agree with. Sometimes we might have takes that we might not agree with that another content creator has, but at the end of the day, it's the overall picture, right, that is being painted or presented. And when you look at TheGamer, it's constant hit pieces against amazing games, and they're constantly propping up really awful experiences. Like I had played Bloom and Rage Part 1, for example. I absolutely loathed it. I thought it was one of the worst games I've played. Definitely going to be in the worst of 2025's list. And what did TheGamer do? They said that it was amazing. They said it was nostalgic, it was emotional, it was really cool, and they have so much going for them. This title was terrible. They're attacking Monster Hunter Wilds because, again, they want to prop up Veilguard, and yet they're praising things like Lost Records. Absolutely terrible takes here. You cannot be this delusional. When you make games that appeal to the larger player demographic, you make money. When a game appeals to the smallest demographic and preaches unwanted ideology, you don't make money. Simple business. And I do think that they fumbled with Dragon Age the Veilguard. I wanted it to come out. I wanted it to be amazing. I wanted another really great Dragon Age game, but that's clearly not what we got. And it didn't appeal to a lot of people. Long-time fans of the franchise to new gamers. It overall was just a really terrible experience. But instead of just admitting that, hey, Veilguard wasn't a good game and look at how amazing Monster Hunter Wilds is doing, they're questioning why Wilds isn't flopping like Veilguard when they claim they're basically the same thing, even though they are vastly different. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.